So, hi, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on a very timely and pertinent subject having to do with emergency room preparedness and are you ready? So that conjures up, I'm sure, a lot of pictures in everybody's mind. So my name is Vicki Elner. I work with the practice of Ronald Petula and Associates in Outreach and Government Affairs. And this is another webinar that we're doing, and we've been able to come out with some really incredible topics over the last couple of months while Zoom has come into our life, relevant to difficult family conversations, advocacy, and other issues that are pertinent, very topical, and really are very educational. So, and today is no exception. So, as we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any comments, if you could put that into the Q&A, we will be looking at the different questions, answers, comments come in. We'll fill them accordingly and address that depending on what the nature of it is, either at the time or we have plenty of time at the end of the presentations to answer your questions. So we look forward to hearing that. And what we always like to hear from everybody is, hey, you know what? What brought you here today? Interest, you had a specific issue, recommendation. So share with us because we'd like to know how you got to us. So thank you so much for that. So in starting, our first speaker today is Jahangir Sultan. Jahangir has actually joined us on two other of our webinars on topics having to do with fall prevention. And we just did something relevant to hospital discharging. So he's very multifaceted and certainly has a lot of good information to share with us. So let me tell you a little bit about Jahangir. Jahangir is the founder and CEO of Patient Advocates of New York. And he was born in the Promised Land. We call that Brooklyn. Raised in England. And as a child, he sought more information about his heritage. And I love this information about him. I think it's so incredible. His father sent him to live with his grandparents in the Himalayas at the age of 10. And that really was a catalyst for him becoming very interested and passionate about senior services and about providing care. So with this passion, he returned to the United States and he was just determined to pursue a career related to elder care. He's worked in various healthcare settings and his roles such as occupational therapy manager, regional director of rehabilitation, and director of specialty programs. One theme that has remained consistent in his focus on providing his clients with the best possible care, hence he created Patient Advocates of New York, with the mission of changing healthcare from what it is to what it should be, which I like to call vision. So please help me welcome Jahangir Sultan.
Thank you so much, Vicki, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you, Ron and his team, for setting up this beautiful venue space today. As Vicki mentioned, we will be talking about emergency preparedness and things we can do to help ease them. So when our clients come on board, after we completed an evaluation for them, we create the famous red binder. So in this binder is all the pertinent information that they need to help prepare them for, God forbid, a emergency room visit. This binder is placed above their refrigerator, so all the caregivers in their homes know where they are in the event they have to leave their home and go to an emergency room. What's in this binder? It's their information, their name and address, phone number, and email. I recently had a referral from a hospital where they needed some pertinent information, power attorney, health proxy. It was all located in his home. And the gentleman provided us with his home address And my team went over to his home, and it turned out he no longer lived there. He moved out there 2 years ago. And the reason why I was able to find that out was that we called the emergency ambulance department, found out where they picked him up, and we were able to locate his residence. And there were some important issues that had come up that we weren't readily able to address because we didn't have this important documentation. So that's why we always tell our clients to have their name, address, phone number, and email in this red binder. The other thing that we asked them to put in there is important legal documents. Ron is going to touch upon these documents in much more detail later on in this presentation, but I'm just going to list them right now. It's the power of attorney, the health proxy, the advanced directives, which includes sometimes DNI, which means do not intubate, do not resuscitate, and MULST. These are important documents that the team in the emergency room has to have in place. In the event you're not able to make decisions for yourself, somebody else has to make these decisions, and these documents help facilitate that. Other information that we add into this binder are allergies. Sometimes our clients have latex allergies that it's, of course, in the emergency room. It's very important for the providers to know that. Some of our clients have precautions. They're not able to weight bear in certain extremities. So let's say if they're about to transfer them from the stretcher to another bed, and they might have to do a two-man lift versus having them get up because they're not able to weight bear on one of their extremities. We also put blood type in there. We just don't make a generic statement or have a paper that says that it states their blood type. We actually get some type of documentation from a medical provider that clearly states their blood type. In the emergency room, they will test your blood type regardless of whatever documentation you will present with them. But sometimes time is of the essence, and having that information readily available, it's always great to have. We also place in the file durable medical equipment. Sometimes our clients are using, let's say, for example, a quad cane to ambulate. So you might go into an emergency room and they're having you walk, and they'll notice that you might have some type of gait impairment. But if they know that you use, for example, a quad cane, it could help to facilitate, to help you to transfer safely from one surface to another. Other information that is important, we also put our clients' orthopedic devices if they're utilizing them in the folder. We have clients that have custom-made back braces. Sometimes those have to be brought into the hospital. But just knowing that our clients are using our orthotic device, such as a back brace, it'll make the medical team much more aware of the, let's say for a back brace, they might have some spinal cord issues, and then they have to be super sensitive with when they're moving them around. The other thing that we put in there are adaptive devices. Some of our clients use weighted utensils. So you might be presented with a meal in the emergency room or transferred to the medical floor, and you're not able to eat it because your hands are shaking. But if the facility knew that you're using weighted devices to feed yourself, they can put those in place so you can feed yourself in a safe manner. Dietary precautions are so important. So some of our clients eat halal food. Some of our clients eat galat kosher food. Some of them are vegetarians. Having that information in place, it's so vital. We have some clients that are eating puree diet, CHOP diet, and this is very important. So you might go to the emergency room and they're having you take pills orally with water, and it turns out that you're not able to drink liquids because you're an aspiration risk, and they have to basically put some puree in your water so that or thicket, as they call it, into your water so you can basically drink the water in a safe manner. Of course, medical history is very important to have in place, surgical history, having all your medication. So once this folder is set up, it has to be updated every day. So if there's any changes in medication, you want to put that in place. So having the most up-to-date current medical information, the dosage in place makes the emergency room visit a lot smoother. So they can continue some of your meds that are working. You might be there because of something that happened with your current medication. They can address that readily. Having the pharmacy information is so vital because let's say if they need to look at historically what you were taking before, what was effective, what was not, they can easily get that information from your pharmacy. Having your current eye prescription is so important. So not only having that, but also having the glasses themselves so that when you're in the emergency room, in the hospital, you're going to be presented with a lot of things to read. You want to make sure that you have the proper prescription. Sometimes you ended up losing your glasses, and with the most updated prescription, you can have somebody give you the the proper eyewear. Another thing, of course, is hearing. Taking your hearing aids with you. And if you don't have those in place, getting those in place so you could actually listen to the information that is being presented to you. Health insurance information is so vital as well. Adria will definitely go into much more detail of how important that is later in the presentation today. Of course, your emergency contacts. We touched upon that a little bit with the health proxy power of attorney, but you might have other people that are much more readily available and you want to put their contact information in this binder. Having your primary MD information is vital as well. Yes, you have your diagnoses, surgical, but your primary MD knows you well. So it's important for them, for the medical team in the emergency room to communicate with your provider, have some discussions to figure out what's the best plan of care for you. Also, specialist information. If you're seeing a psychiatrist, if you're seeing a special ortho doctor, and it's related to your emergency room visit, having that information in place is very vital. Primary language. If you're speaking English, great. But let's say if you're speaking Thai Chinese, which is a very unique dialect in China, having that in place in the binder would make it a lot easier. So in this case, I had a client who spoke Thai Chinese. They were able to get vital information communicated back and forth with the patient. But prior to having this in place, anytime this gentleman would go into the emergency room, they would always have a Mandarin or a Cantonese translator there, and my client basically doesn't speak those two languages. If you speak American Sign Language, having that in place is so important. If you're using any special communication device, if you communicate by writing, again, information that people in the emergency room will not have. So it's important for us to be proactive and have this information in place. Listening style is very important as well. I have a client who likes me to whisper in her left ear slowly things that are being communicated to her, and she understands fully what's going on. And having that vital information in the binder for her is very important. Fears. I have a client who has a fear of lab coats, of all things, right? So when they go into the emergency room, having that information or communicating that information to the emergency prior to they get there, they are able to isolate my client in an area. When they're going into their room, they're removing the lab coat and communicating with my client, and my client is much more receptive to people that are not wearing lab coats. They might have sensory sensitivities, and such as certain touch, specific lights, sounds, odors, textures, fabric. It's important to have that information in the binder as well. There's also comfort items. I have a client, not very receptive to new ideas or new things, but if you give her vanilla ice cream, she literally will melt in your hands, and she's much more receptive to working with the individual or providers. If you're using assistive technology, having that information is vital as well. Certain behavioral considerations. I have a client who, when he's agitated, basically demonstrates like a behavior that he's going to get aggressive and hurt somebody, but he doesn't. He just doesn't. He wants to be left alone, and having that information in place so that everybody knows, even though he may appear aggressive, but in the end, he's not going to harm anybody. It's very, very vital. Pain management. Let's say if you have lower back pain, and if you're positioned a certain way, helps to alleviate that lower back pain. And having that information in place just makes your visit to the emergency room much more comfortable. So I have another client who basically has a difficulty taking shots. But if you give her a word puzzle while she's getting a shot, she gets distracted and she's able to handle getting a shot from the medical providers. Again, it's the fine little details that make it's important to have these information in place. So the providers that you're going to interface with in the emergency room, they basically have never met you before. By having all this vital information at hand will make your emergency room visit a lot more easier. Some of the, so not as in great detail that I've covered today, there are some resources in the community. And here is a website for the New York City Gov, which has an emergency plan. You could basically go on the website and print out this information. For individuals with developmental disability, the Staten Island Developmental Disability Community has a My Health Passport, which is more specifically geared towards the DD community. And you could also call and have this information delivered to your home. For New York City, it's 311, and for the other areas, it's 211. If you have any other questions that we're not covering today, please feel free you can email me or call me on my cell. Thank you. Back to you, Vicki.
So thank you, Jahangir, for that very comprehensive review and information. A couple of things maybe we can chat a little bit about is, first of all, in regards to resources, and I know you mentioned this, but in every area will have their own specific connections, which a lot of times you can find, online, relevant to emergency plans, etc. And speaking about emergency plans, well, emergencies are emergencies, right? So whatever you can do in advance to have the proper information already ready to go with you, of course, is you're one step ahead of the game. But I think one of the things that maybe we should bring into light here is that since we are in uncharted territory over COVID-19 and the pandemic, is that there have been substantial statistics related to people putting off emergency visits because of fear of going to the hospitals, etc., reasons like that. And you're seeing a lot of PSAs now on TV and professionals talking about that. If you have a chest pain or, you don't feel one side of your face or whatever that situation might be, is that the emergency room is still the place to get yourself to, even if you have to call ahead and say, hey, you know what, I'm bringing, or, if you're going 911, that's one way. So any thoughts on that? Because I think it's such an important issue.
Is that geared towards me? Or any?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So yes, it is, the only thing is, I think it's all about holding accountability. Yes, it's the COVID environment, and but that doesn't change anything, right? So there's still certain expectations that we have from our medical providers, and I think it's very important that we hold them to that standard. For example, I had a client who went into the emergency room, and I was told that she basically didn't have any shoes to go home with, because at the time that they picked her up, they were basically going to have her go home with the non-skid socks. And I said, no, in the age of COVID, I can't have my client walking downstairs in the hospital environment, going outside, catching a cab with socks on. So I waited there until they basically were able to get her ortho shoes, and then we were able to go outside. So I think COVID or no COVID, I think it's important to have certain expectations from these organizations and ask for them. You know, it's there's no harm in asking for them. It doesn't change anything, because I think, unfortunately, what's happening is that COVID at times is being used as an excuse to not give really good quality care.
Yeah, that's quite a point. And I also think that it's, before we move on, just a little bit of, I think, underscoring is that in this time of COVID, what you have talked about is even more critical, because when you get to the hospital, the likelihood that you're going to have somebody that knows you, loves you, and has been with you, a spouse, a friend, a partner, is not going to be in that emergency room with you. Right. So if you're prepared accordingly with your health history and everything, that's going to make the process certainly, a lot, I don't know if I'd use the word seamless, but definitely, be able to be much more, accurate in terms of the type of care that you get and your outcome, which is what we're really looking for, positive outcomes.
Vicky, you also bring up something to mind. I think it's so important when you're going into...
So with that being said, our next presenter, and it's really great to assemble a panel like this where we have somebody who is so well versed with a case management company like Jangir. Next up speaking will be Adria Gross, who's an insurance expert and an insurance advocate, and then ultimately talking about the legal issues, which Ron Vitula will be discussing, is that you're in the hospital emergency room, and probably the last thing on your mind at that point is what's going to happen to you in terms of billing issues, insurance issues, and then reality sets in, and reality can bite relevant to that. So having somebody who you can refer to, who can help you through your insurance issues, is a very, very critical issue. And our presenter today, Adria Gross, what I call her is the lioness that roars, especially when somebody has an issue, when they have been improperly billed, they're not getting reimbursement properly, or a host of other issues. So let me tell you a little bit about Adria. Excuse me, and her company. Adria has, her company is MedWise Insurance Advocacy. She's a CEO, and she's a renowned figure in the New York area and across the country as a result of her extensive referral network of well-satisfied clients. We could all hope for that, or not hope for that, but definitely structure our organizations to accomplish that. Her clients are thrilled to refer friends and relatives in need of her unique talents as a medical claim advocate, dealing with complex medical billing put forth by the interface of the healthcare delivery system and insurance marketplace. She's got 30 years of experience in insurance and advocacy. She uncovers discrepancies in diagnostic or procedure coding, finds loopholes through which insurance companies attempt to deny claims. I can't believe they do that. Who ever heard of that? And help attorneys, individuals, and families resolve medical claim matters, usually reducing medical bills and liens. She is a hero for her clients, and she makes lawyers superheroes to theirs. Welcome, Adria. We're thrilled to have you with us today.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Jangir. Ron, Jackie, thank you for having me here. Let me start this screen share. My first time doing this. Okay. So, this article that you have here, this was in the August 12th, 2019 Reuters article, Reuters. A growing number of Americans treated in hospitals that are part of the insurance works are getting billed for out-of-network care, a U.S. study suggests. The proportion of emergency room visits to in-network hospitals that result in out-of-network bills surged from 32.3% to 42.8% from 2010 to 2016. Over the same period, the proportion of inpatient hospital admissions to in-network hospitals that result in out-of-network bills surged from 26 to 42%. Patients test for these out-of-network bills has also climbed from an average of $220 to $628 for ER visits, from an average of $804 to $240 for inpatient hospital admissions. So, when Jahangir was speaking, I thought to myself, one of my friends said to me a long time ago, he says, Adrian, as they take me in the stretcher in the hospital, what I want to do is make sure that each one of those doctors, because, when you go to the hospital, you see multiple doctors. So as they're rolling you down the hallway, wherever they're taking you, he says, he wants to ask every single one of the doctors, do you take my insurance? Am I covered by seeing you? Because this is the scary thing for a lot of people. And they try so hard not even to go into an emergency room. So this is another article that I read. It's Vox.com. And here was a guy who went to an in-network emergency room. He still ended up with this almost $8,000 bill. So on January 28th, 34-year-old Scott Cohan woke up in an emergency room in downtown Austin, Texas, with his jaw broken in 2 places. This was the result of a violent attack the night before. The witnesses called 911, which dispatched an ambulance that brought him to the hospital while he was unconscious, except he wasn't. And while the emergency room where Cohan was seen was in his insurance network, the oral surgeon who worked in that ER was not. That's how Cohan winded up with a bill for $8,000 from the oral surgeon that his health plan declined. I had a situation a few years ago with someone who was at York University Hospital. Everything was paid for except the bills from the dentist, the dental surgeon they took her. And it was a blessing. And in fact, even after I got the money paid to the surgeon, this was at New York University Hospital, he says, I want to handle my cases. It's a lot of work, but, I always tell people don't give up. So here's a cartoon. Free healthcare for everyone except pay for this and that, and surgeries, medication, and a bunch of other stuff. But what a victory for the average American. Ouch. How much money for the ER? When you go into an emergency room, we have no clue what we charge for the emergency room. All too often, hospitals have an outside company that runs their emergency room, not the hospitals. And what happens, the reason why I'm telling you this is because I have had situations where people have come to me and they said, Adri, I went in the emergency room, I was taken care of. Sometimes people are moved into the hospital as an outpatient under observation, or they're an inpatient. But what happens is many of these emergency rooms are run by an outside group of doctors who are out of network. And when that happens, these people are stuck with a lot of crazy bills. So here's a case that I worked on. This was a brain tumor. And the woman is, she lives in New York State, but with the brain tumor, she lost it. She didn't know where she was going. And it caused her to get lost in the state of Connecticut. So here she is driving her car from New York to Connecticut. She winds up in a stranger's driveway in Connecticut. and they called an ambulance, and she was taken to the Danbury Hospital. Well, she was accepted into the emergency room and wound up having surgery by a doctor. This was amazing. He only had $30 when he first came to the United States from overseas. What happened in this situation, none of the doctors would even do surgery on her because she had this policy from New York and they wouldn't cover her for out of state. But she was able to get a surgeon to do surgery on her. And she was on a very minimal health plan. It's really most people were on it on Medicaid in New York State. She wasn't able to find a neurosurgeon. But the fact she had the surgery, here was the emergency. She had surgery out of state. They did accept her into the ER. But then she had the crazy bill, and luckily, thank God, I was able to get paid. It says the bills were over $1 million. So here was another case where a woman went to the ER. She was in her attic, and for some odd reason, the floor just broke, and she fell into her garage. She had multiple fractures. She went to the emergency room. So in this situation, she had to have immediate surgery. And she goes to the ER, has immediate surgery, but the surgeon was out of network. So it was a big fight, but after she fell, the hospital bills and food in the emergency room were covered, but not the surgeon. So I fought really hard with the insurance company and finally was able to get the surgeon to be paid for their surgical procedure. Here was another situation where a woman, she was on vacation, she broke her vertebrae, she was hospitalized in Hungary, and the insurance company denied it. So in this situation, she was in a hospital for about, I think it was around 10 to 12 days in Hungary. She was able to get back home, but the insurance company went ahead and denied her. I was able to get them to overturn it. She was under the age of 65, and she was covered for being out of the country. But they finally paid for her surgery and hospitalization, but they would not pay for her to come back to the United States. When I started out in the industry, I worked for travel insurance. So a lot of times, especially if someone's 65 or older, you really need travel insurance when you go overseas because otherwise nothing's going to get paid. And it could cost you an arm and leg, not even to get back on an emergency ambulance. This one was a CAT scan in the emergency room. The insurance was denied, saying it wasn't medically necessary. The bill started out at $12,000, and then they were nice enough to lower it to $6,000. But in this situation, first of all, the normal fee for a CAT scan is usually no more than $400. So I was surprised my client agreed to it, but she wound up paying a little over $1,200. So we went originally from $12,000 down to $6,000. They went ahead and offered it, but and I looked. It was only a CAT scan, and she went to the ER through the ER for the CAT scan. The normal fee being $400, they did multiply times 3, so they wound up being paid about $1,250. So that was 300% of what's normally paid on this. And the worst part about it is she needed pre-authorization on her plan for the CAT scan, but the hospital never called in for the pre-authorization, and therefore they didn't pay it. So I was a little upset that they wouldn't accept, the $400, but at least they lowered it down to $1,250. Another case I worked on, this woman was married. I'm still working on this case right now. She was married for 6 months. Her husband passed away. He worked for the federal government. Here she is receiving the insurance cards for 3 years after his death. And they turn around and they paid all of her claims. And then they turn around and they said, you know what? You want all our money back. Even though she had the insurance card. And the reason, this is the craziest thing, the reason why they want the money back, the reason why they wouldn't let her have that insurance, and nobody told her, is the fact that the federal government wanted her to be married for 9 months or more. So they decided, you know what? We're not going to pay this. We want all the money back. And right now, I went to her politician to see if I could get this changed. And right now, they're working on it. Her bills are well over $10,000. And I'm hoping that her federal congresswoman does help us, with her case. So, when I look at this and I'm thinking about all the different things that come up, I want everybody to know that there is an organization called the Medicare Rights Center. They're open from 9 to 3. Here's the phone number you can call. And, one of the questions I had for them, with the COVID-19, when it started, they said, we're only going to cover you until the end of May if you have emergency at the hospital. A lot of people are going to the hospital, they're getting tested. But a lot of people out there, from the articles that I see when I'm reading, is they're billing these people. They were billing, they were supposed to be covered for everything until May 31st of this year. But now what's happening is even people before May 31st, they're not getting paid. And the Medicare observation, the Medicare Rights Center, when you call them up, everybody's working from home. And I called them up and I asked this question. I said, look, why are these people not getting covered? Isn't this the rule? Which I was in a meeting one day with a New Jersey hospital, the CEO on, and I asked him, I said, have you seen extension for this rule going beyond May 31st? And he said, no. So, you've got to be really careful. I mean, if you know anybody who's going for a COVID test, one of my friends wound up in the hospital. He thought that he was in COVID. He went to the emergency room. They put him on the floor with the COVID patients. He was on that floor for 36 hours. After 24 hours, they said, we're going to move you. We do not believe you have COVID. And they moved him on to another floor. He was there for a little over 48 hours, but he received bills for this. And everything, according to our government, is supposed to be covered where you're not supposed to be receiving any bills. So here was a situation. He goes in, his temperature went from, I remember the dates. His temperature went up to over 104. So when he went to the emergency room, they admitted him. They didn't admit him. They accepted him into the emergency room, and then they put him on the COVID floor. And even the stories were horrendous. But the major factor is that he received these bills, and he wasn't supposed to receive them. So the other thing I want to mention, and right now I spoke to Medicare Rights Center about this, and they weren't sure. But there's a rule that I want to tell everybody about if you don't know yet. And originally it came out in Medicare, but it's also happening with the large commercial insurers or ERISA plans. When a company has thousands of employees, they're on an ERISA plan. And what happens is they're saying, and again, when I called the Medicare Rights Center, they didn't know the answer to this to see if this has changed, because I heard there's been a freeze on it since the COVID started. Whereas in the past, if you were in the hospital, you had to be in the hospital for 2 midnights or more as an inpatient for you to be covered for hospitalization, which is a Part A. They would cover you for Part B, but they wouldn't cover you for Part A unless you had 2 midnights as an inpatient. And then to go into a rehab, you had to have 3 midnights. Right now, rule, I was told a couple months ago, was on a freeze. I don't know where it is right now. But I'm just forewarning, especially the seniors, the 2 minute, 3 minute look. And if you have any questions about this, please feel free to call me. Many doctors do not take Medicare and commercial insurance. That's why I said at the beginning of this conversation, my friend said to me, Adria, if I wind up in a hospital, they're wheeling me down the hall. I want to make sure that every doctor is taking my insurance. So it's best to inform the ER department at the hospital to whether or not they do take your insurance if they're out of network. Many states, I would say at least 26 states, passed a law similar to the New York State Supplies Bill law that if your insurance carrier doesn't, they're not going to fight for your rights. To get, especially the insurance is not going to fight for you, then what I really recommend is you reach out to your Attorney General for your state, and also the Department of Financial Services and the Department of Consumer Affairs. I've had situations where they've been denied again multiple times, and I have a case right now where we're trying to go to the media. Again, once you go to those departments, if you're still having a problem, my last resort, even after going to media, is to reach out to your congresspeople to see if they can help you. Another thing that I want to share with you is the Medicare Fee Schedule. You can see the website where to go. This is really for the New York State area, Kentucky. I think it even goes up to Maine. It does not include New Jersey. But it really doesn't matter. But when you look at the Medicare Fee Schedule, you can look up the procedure codes to see how much they should get paid by that procedure code. And even when you go into a Medicare Fee Schedule for the entire United States, you'll see that it's pretty much the same. It might be $20, $30 difference, but it's really not much of a difference, even when you look at that New York State fee schedule. So this is a great website to go to try and get what the prices would be. So I want to thank you all for having me here today, for speaking, and any questions you have, please ask me. Thank you. Vicki, we can't hear you.
That's the new buzzword, mute and unmute. Thank you, Adria. Your work is incredible and inspirational, all right, for what you do, and it's certainly can be very complicated. What I did not mention is that you are a published author. You have a couple of books out there. One is, let me see where I wrote down here. Oh, my goodness. Oh, here we go.
It's right behind.
Sorry about that, guys. For some reason, I had to tell me the books that you're. I'm sorry. Here it goes. You're the co-author of "Solved: Curing Your Medical Insurance Problems," right?
Yes.
And multi-payer medicine nightmare made in the USA. That conjures up all kinds of images in my mind. As well as being recognized. A couple of things I'll mention here. In 2013, you received recognition as a Woman of Achievement by New York WCBS News Radio 880. And in 2016, you were named the Advocate by Good Housekeeping. So congratulations on all the incredible work that you do and, solving these problems for people. Your work is amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vicki.
Before we move on, every team has a quarterback. That person who ties up everything together, lays a foundation for, very involved in making us look good all the time. And for us, that's Jackie Rothamel. Jackie is the marketing and outreach coordinator for Ronald Fatula and Associates, and we certainly couldn't produce and execute these webinars without her oversight, intervention. So thank you, Jackie, for everything that you do for us.
Thank you, Vicki. That was very nice.
So as we move on, and speaking of people who are highly recognized, and certainly Ron Petula, an elder law attorney, and the principal of Ron Petula and Associates, is a trailblazer in the elder care industry. So let me tell you a little bit about Ron. And if I had to do a webinar where I showed you all of his awards, you'd have to block out, I don't know, about 2 or 3 years. I'm sure you have a high-rise building for those awards, Ron.
But that's okay. They're in storage.
So Ron is and also before I go on, Ron is so wonderful as much as hosting these events with these different topics that we've been able to get out there. So, it really is, I think it's amazing. So thank you for all of that. You're the principal of the New York-based law firm of Ron Petula and Associates, where you practice areas of elder law, estate planning, Medicaid planning, trusts, wills, guardianships, and estate administration. You serve on the executive committee of the Elder Law and Special Needs section of the New York State Bar Association. Also serve as a co-chair of the board of directors of the Long Island chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, and also serves on the executive council of the AARP of New York. With core values of honesty, integrity, and excellence, Mr. Petula has devoted his career to helping others understand the legal and financial challenges of aging. And I can tell you that certainly with the topic that we're talking about, when it comes to someone that and you have to look at the legal aspect of it, you're not going to find anybody better. Welcome, Ron.
Well, thank you so much. Vicki, thank you. I really appreciate it. And Jackie, thank you. And Jangir, you did an amazing job. I really appreciate it. And Adria, how many times have we heard of clients going into the emergency room and getting these huge bills and freaking out? So thank you so much. And Jangir, when you started to talk, I think even before you started to talk, Jangir, you took a little sip from a cup. And my heart started to pound, and I said, what a great cup. I have to get one of those. And then I saw it said PLA, and I thought for a fraction of a second, I thought it said N, but no way, it said Y. So it's a good idea to play while you're feeling well, but you got to plan. I want to get a mug that says plan, because that's the key going forward. So keep your mug. I love it. But I'm thinking of getting one that says plan, because it's a reminder to everyone. Yeah, there you go. PLA. Oh, play Bill. Okay, I didn't see that other side. All right. You're a theater goer. At least you used to be a theater goer, huh? All right, that sounds good. Well, yeah, so let's get to the, let me get to the slides that I have here. To the legal aspects, and I do want to just tie this all together. None of our areas of expertise, whether it's Jangir, Adria, or myself as the elder law and estate planning attorney, actually, you need all of us, because we do something a little different. And it's wonderful getting your team together. And that's going to be my first slide that I want to go over. So number one, just think of Jangir's cup, but with a little bit of a different spelling, plan. Because when you plan in advance, you're going to be ready for an emergency. And that's what you want to be. So you want to get your team together. You want to get a Jangir who could come in. And if you've heard Jangir today, you've heard him before, if you were lucky enough to be on one of the other webinars we had. And, really is there as an advocate for you. And Adria as well has been on another webinar with us. And just, it's so good to have her on your team, because you don't want to be surprised in the future. That's absolutely crucial. And from my monetary point of view, as far as, my planning, you also want, obviously, the elder law attorney, estate planning attorney. That would be me or my team or anybody with these qualifications. So we're the one that would draft the plan, the documents, plan for incapacity, set up the trust, the will, and some of the documents that Jangir mentioned, and we're going to go over that. You want the financial advisor as well, because the management of the assets in accordance with the plan that the attorney sets up is crucial. So for example, if we have assets sitting in a living trust, I can't tell you how many times a financial advisor has messed things up by transferring assets a certain way or even managing assets a certain way, and it didn't do it in accordance with the plan, and we weren't able to protect assets. So that financial advisor needs to know about estate planning, estate tax planning, Medicaid issues, what that trust says, how the assets have to be managed, how the assets and income have to be distributed. That's very important. My son and I actually do have a wealth advisor firm called Advice Period. It's an absolutely great company with about 35 partners that we have at this point. We have a staff of about 100 that actually will be there to help you, very nimble and absolutely fantastic support and asset management skills. We now have several billions of dollars under management. So, but we don't actually represent the client as an attorney and a financial advisor, but we do represent quite a few people. Many of our clients have been attorneys of the firm in the past, but we would not do anything where we see there might be any conflict of interest. The CPA is very important as well, because the CPA is part of that three-legged stool, you know, for the basic financial issues. The attorney, the financial advisor, and the individual that's actually going to do the tax planning and preparation in accordance with the plan that the elder law and estate planning attorney has set forth, and the financial advisor who's implementing and managing assets. So that all goes together. And if you have a care need, you might need a geriatric care manager as well. Excuse me. The documents that Jangir was talking about are these. And I do want to start off with bullet point number 3. Now, a healthcare proxy, when we're talking about an emergency room, is so vital. So let's take it back a notch and let's talk about the healthcare proxy. It's a very important document. The healthcare proxy is where you appoint someone else to make your healthcare decisions if you can't make them. And that might be in the emergency room. Be prepared, have a healthcare proxy done. We draft them for our clients, but you don't need an attorney to fill out a healthcare proxy form, because that's all that is. All of the other documents you want an attorney for. There are nuances. But the healthcare proxy, where you're simply appointing someone else to make your healthcare decisions, you could do that on your own. You could download that form from the Department of Health website, or simply Google New York State statutory healthcare proxy. And it's very simple to fill out. So let's talk about that for a moment. You don't need a notary. You need 2 witnesses to witness that signature. Those witnesses can't be anyone that you named as the proxy, but it's a very simple form to fill out. Very powerful. So the question is, and you don't want to do it in the emergency room. You want to think about it. Who are you going to name? Who will effectuate your wishes? How are they going to effectuate your wish? Well, they need to know what they are. So you have to have conversations with them. You probably want to have a living will where you set forth what your healthcare wishes are. So it's the healthcare proxy that you want and have ready with you. Now, if you're going into an emergency room, you may not want to think about having that healthcare proxy. Where did I put it? So this is what I advise our clients. Sign the healthcare proxy. Fill it out. It's very simple. You just put in your name. You put in the agent or the proxy, number 1. If that individual can't act, number 2. There's no time frame. Just say indefinitely or leave it blank. And basically, you could sign that. There's another provision I'd like you to put into it. And then you would have a great healthcare proxy, and I'll get to that in a minute, but you sign it in front of the witnesses, you name your 2 proxies, and the witnesses sign it. That is it. Now, you're going to want that proxy, and you're going to want to make copies of it. I advise my male clients to just fold it up and put a copy in your wallet. So you're going to have that healthcare proxy along with your insurance cards, whether it's private insurance or Medicare, your supplemental, maybe your Part D, you just have it all together with your healthcare proxy. So if, God forbid, you wind up in an emergency room, everything is right there and you're all set. Now, what is that provision that I'd like you to put into the healthcare proxy? It doesn't have to be in this exact language. But if you want the agent on the healthcare proxy or the proxy to make decisions about feeding tubes, you want to put in a provision such as the following, quote unquote, I discussed with my healthcare agent and my successor agent my wishes concerning artificial nutrition and hydration, i.e. feeding tubes, and I would like them to make all decisions about those measures, including, but not limited to, the insertion and withdrawal of feeding tubes. So basically, you could put that in your own language, your own wording. But basically, you're giving the right to your agent to make decisions about feeding tubes. So the words are that you've discussed what your wishes are with your agent and your successor agent, and they know your wishes about feeding tubes. Artificial nutrition and hydration, I like to add including but not limited to, the insertion and withdrawal of feeding tubes. And then you'll be all set. Don't need a lawyer, but you do need the elder law attorney for the other documents. And, I focused on Jahangir's cup because I thought it said plan, but this is what I want you to consider. Get a plan in place, a legal plan in place, so you're not caught short. Yes, you could do that healthcare proxy on your own, but get it all together. I want to explain why. And I want to just go through some of these quick documents. So number 1, I would say, is the healthcare proxy, because we're talking about emergency room preparedness. Just get it done. And this way you're going to think about it, and you're going to talk to your agent and successor agent about your wishes and do a living will. And that document is where you set forth what your healthcare wishes are. So that's pretty simple, and you should be all set with that. But you do want a last will and testament. Think about where your assets are going to go when you pass away. You do want an attorney to do that. There are a ton of reasons why, and I did many webinars on that, but there are just so many reasons why you want the attorney to do it. Obviously, there are legal reasons in drafting, but there are also presumptions that the surrogates court has, and it makes things so much easier later on. So you want a last will and testament. You definitely want a special planning power of attorney and a statutory gifts rider, because let's say you're in an emergency room. Let's say you need to stay in the hospital, or you need to go into a nursing home for rehab. There may be some financial considerations to take care of. If you have that power of attorney, the individual that you name can make those decisions, can even do the planning. And look at that last bullet point. The agent on the power of attorney can even sign a living trust and even transfer assets into that living trust to protect them. How important is that? So you want to get this all together. The power of attorney has lots of provisions in it, the expanded power. We may add in maybe 40 to 80 extra provisions into the power and into the statutory gifts rider to enable the agent to plan and coordinate the planning if you go into an emergency room and then a hospital or a nursing home for rehab or even long-term care. So you want that all in place. When do you want to put it in place? Before something like this should occur. When will something like this occur? We never have a clue in life. What does that mean? Plan now if you don't have a plan. And if you haven't looked at your plan for the last few years, take a look at it. Get a checkup with an elder law attorney such as myself or my team, and make sure that everything is the way it should be. You should know that the New York State Legislature, the New York State Assembly, and New York State Senate has actually agreed on and signed off on and passed a brand new power of attorney law, which actually tweaked so many of the negatives that were in the prior power of attorney law, which came down, I guess it's over 10 years now. The governor has not signed it, and even when the governor signs it, then it won't become effective for 180 days. So I'm not going to get into it today, but when the governor signs it, we do have a half a year, and the banks wanted that period of time, and we all, gave into the banks because they gave into us too when we were negotiating with them. But we really got a lot. There's going to be more teeth to the power of attorney when this law comes about, so that if a bank doesn't honor the power, we could actually force them to do it easier than before. Now, the last bullet point again, the living trust, make sure that you have a plan in place. And the gold standard in planning will be that living trust to protect assets that you have. Well, whether it's a home, a co-op, or a condominium, or if it's a brokerage account. Look, the stock market, it's hard to believe, after COVID and all of this, has been hitting new highs. If you transfer brokerage accounts or a home into a Medicaid asset protection trust to protect these assets for Medicaid, and you do it now, or you do the transfer in the trust, and it's all set prior to October 1, there is no look back for Medicaid home care. Now, let me just say that again. If you actually do the Medicaid Asset Protection Trust and we transfer the assets into that trust before October 1, in other words, another month or so in a week, we don't have much time here. But if you do it, those assets are going to be protected. And if you need Medicaid at home, there is no look back for home care ever, ever. But if you transfer those assets starting October 1, we could protect them, but there's a new 30-month look back that's going to be implemented. But if you do these transfers now, there's a very short window. Do them now, then there is absolutely no wait. Those assets will be protected once they're in the trust. And what about the brokerage account where you might have capital gains? Apple stock went up to whatever, like 467. I have so many clients with that stock. They bought Apple for such a small amount. Well, we could preserve the capital gains so there's zero capital gains taxes by transferring the stock or the brokerage account or even the co-op condo or house into that Medicaid trust. How important is that? So make sure that this planning is done ASAP and know about that October 1 deadline. Do the planning now, but there's really no time. Well, there is time, but it's not much time. You want to get the plan in place, the trust drafted, reviewed, implemented and signed, and have the transfers go in the trust prior to October 1. So time is short, but there still is time to plan, get the word out. That I think that would be terrific. Now, I know I don't have too much more time. I just want to go over this slide, which basically will talk about virtual execution of the documents. Now, let me just hit this button. Whoops, sorry about that. Okay, we still have the right to virtually execute documents, get them notarized, and get them witnessed. And the governor keeps extending the deadline. And there is legislation that's pending to make this permanent. But until it's signed, and there's been a lot of tweaks to it, so I don't know if that version is going to be signed, but they're talking about it in Albany. But right now, the governor has to keep extending the deadline for virtual notarization. And the next slide, is virtual witnessing. So we could do it now until September 4th. And I have no doubt that the governor is going to extend it. I can't guarantee it, but I would say it's a 99, in my mind, a 99% certainty that he will do that. After the emergency room, if there's long-term care, we might have to look, for Medicaid. But if the individual is wealthy enough, first of all, you want to make sure that insurance covers it. Thank you, Adria, right? So Adria Gross, so glad that you're on this call. Medicare won't pay for long-term care, but they might pay for some care. Medicare, for example, might pay for care in a rehab facility up to 100 days, first 20 days in full, and then there's a copay, and maybe your supplemental policy will cover the copay for the last 80 days. Maybe it won't. But you want to see a professional like Adria to help you with that. Long-term care insurance is great, but most don't have it. And the insurance companies do raise rates, and some people have dropped out, in my experience. Veterans benefits are getting harder and watered down with a 3-year look back. So you got to be careful. Medicaid is coming out with this 30-month look back for home care, and we already have a 60-month look back or a 5-year look back for nursing home care. But again, sorry if I'm being a little repetitive, if assets are transferred now, if we set up this trust and assets are transferred into this Medicaid Asset Protection Trust before October 1, those assets are protected for Medicaid community-based care, home care, and there is no look back on it, period. So again, this is pretty new. It's only within the last couple of weeks that Department of Health has given us guidelines on this. So we know it. It's a window of opportunity to plan, and I hope that everyone on this call can get the word out to make sure that individuals do the planning. I think I just have another couple of minutes, but this slide just goes over some of the Medicaid asset levels, income levels. For example, the Medicaid applicant can keep $15,750. The applicant can keep retirement accounts in payout status. That's a law that we changed for our clients. We do a lot of advocacy work for our clients. We're very creative, and we go to bat for our clients. We had a client years ago in Queens that had basically just retirement accounts and wanted to protect them, and we went to bat with New York City Medicaid and OLA, the Office of Legal Affairs, and the upshot of that was that Medicaid then recognized that retirement accounts and payout status are exempt. And so that was a big win for our clients in New York State. And we were really happy about that. You can see that the income levels for home care are $895 a month with the $20 disregard. But the Department of Health has given us guidance again within the last couple of weeks. We can use a pooled income trust so you can keep your surplus income. Let's say you have $3,500 of income. You can use that income towards your care with a pooled income trust so you can stay at home. But it's getting a little more complicated, and we, the elder law attorneys, are going to have to advocate, and that pooled income trust has to be funded in a very controlled way. But that's part of what we do. We have a very robust Medicaid application department. We still have spousal refusals, so that's great. And the home care rules are going to change as of October 1, but we're ready for it. And we are going to advocate for our clients. And there were changes in the last couple of years. We went to bat for our clients. And the upshot of that was that they, in almost all cases, were able to keep the hours that they needed. And we were very successful. I sincerely hope that's going to happen, because we are going to go to bat and fight for our clients to make sure that they're going to be getting the care that they need. That's why we do what we do. So I do want to thank you, and I know we're going to open this up to questions, and I do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ron. What a great presentation overview. Really well done. I have a question, and I don't have any questions in the, right now coming in, but when somebody executes a healthcare proxy, is that time limited? Is that something that they have to renew every year, or once you execute it, does that stay in effect for indefinitely?
Yes. Okay. Now yes, it does. Now on the proxy, there's a little line that says, how long will this proxy last? If you don't say anything, the default is indefinitely. So some of my clients put in indefinitely. Okay. Some of my clients put in, I'm going on this, they used to say before COVID, I'm going on this cruise. When I come back from this cruise, I really want to give this a little bit more thought. So they put a date on that, when the healthcare proxy is going to expire. What a mistake, because, we're, as human beings, we forget about things. We're just built to forget about these things. And a lot of clients just forget to think about it because they don't want to think about these things. So I would say always make it indefinite.
Right.
It is indefinite unless you say anything else. There's no time limit on the proxy, just do it. And that's one of the few documents that I spoke about today where you really don't need an attorney to get that done. And it is, nevertheless, a very powerful document.
Yeah, thank you. And, and I want to retract back to emergency preparedness in terms of what Jahangir was talking about with the red binder and information. And I don't recall if this was, if we said it or not. So, so bear with me. Emergencies happen, and guess what? You may not be in a position to be conscious to even say anything about your medical health issue. So I don't remember. There are things that you can do. Medical alert bracelets, things like that. For instance, somebody's on blood thinners or they're diabetic or, whatever their health status, whether it's a necklace, a bracelet or some identifiable thing that if they pull it, I wear contact lenses, that type of thing. Those are things that when you are in an emergency situation and cannot speak for yourself, that you want to have attached to your license, your identification, something like that. There's a lot of bells and whistles that go into, those things. So to keep that in mind.
Vicky,
Ron,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Denise Scher has her hand up. She has a question.
Sure. Let's go. I don't see it, so thank you, Jackie.
Okay. Denise, you should be unmuted. You might need to unmute yourself, but I've unmuted you on my end.
I actually hit the button by mistake.
Oh.
But I've been watching it. Whatever you're saying is very important. I'm a judge in the courts, and I've been a client of the Fatula firm, and it's so important to plan. I tell everyone all the time, and including my children who still have not, but it really is very important. But thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you so much, Denise.
You're welcome.
Really do appreciate it.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Same here. Thank you. Thank you.
And Ron, I know you went in, in good detail relevant to what's going to be happening with Medicaid planning and relevant to what October 1st and the changes and et cetera. But there also are other changes that we know of that are going to happen that are going to make the process different compared to what we've been accustomed to for a long time, such as, number one, you will have to go to an independent doctor right now for certification, where before you be, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ron, you could use your private MD. And the other is that instead of 2 ADLs, activities of daily living, now they're requiring to look at 3 or more. So there are other things that are, entangled in this that are making the Medicaid planning process, a little more dicey anyway. Am I right or wrong?
Oh, absolutely. It's right. And that's not going to start till January 1, but we're gearing up for it. It's definitely going to be more difficult to get hours, but I really do believe we will get the hours that our clients need, but we may have to fight for a little bit more. What's really frustrating to me is that the law also provides that if a client is getting lots of hours, and we think it's going to be a 24-hour sleep-in, when somebody gets a 24-hour sleep-in, somebody that sleeps over, or more hours, there's going to be even another review to see if the individual is quote-unquote safe at home. But I think it's a way for Medicaid to try to take that individual off the rolls, and we'll see how that goes. They tried to do that before when the law changed a couple of years ago. We had a client who was getting 2 12-hour shifts for about 7 years. The law changed, and then they said, well, she only needs 4 hours a day. She actually she's bedbound and lived on the 4th floor of a 4-story walk-up, bedbound, and they wanted to give her 4 hours a day. So just to give you an idea. So we fought for the client, aid continuing. She got her hours. We argued the case, and finally she got back the hours, and we had to do that. Funny enough, we gave that a pretty good fight. And they haven't bothered us that much after that one, I guess, test. I don't know what it was, but we fought back, and we're not piggish. We just put in what our clients need. And right now, I must say that HRA and DSS, they're working with us. And we're very pleased when we put in our Medicaid applications. We're getting approvals very quickly, even without the immediate need. The last application we submitted was approved within 10 days, which I think was pretty damn good when you think about it.
That's great. So thank you, Ron. I know Jangir wants to say something, and then after Jangir, if we don't have any other questions, I'm just going to wrap it up. So Jangir.
Great, thank you. The other important thing that we want to make sure we have in place with us when we go into the emergency room is a cell phone. Making sure that you have a cell phone and it's charged. If you're not comfortable with FaceTiming, using WhatsApp, video conferencing and whatnot, get comfortable with that, because once you're in the institutional setting, and just imagine a COVID type of environment again, it's important for you to be able to see your loved ones, for them to see you. And also, if there's something that's happening there that you want to bring it to their attention, you're able to video conference them and show them what's going on as well. So I think it's an important technology to get comfortable with and take with you when you go into the emergency room or hospital.
Jangir, I just have to cut in for a moment and tell you, I feel like I should have said that. My brother was in the hospital for 5 weeks, and it was a period of time when I wasn't allowed to visit him. And, we were so close. And thank God we were able to FaceTime, and it provided that communication. At first, he didn't want to FaceTime because he said, I don't want anyone to see me like this. But we did. And it really provided a lot of comfort to both of us. And I am so glad that you said that, because it's just so key. Thank you, Jangir. Good comment.
So thank you both. Thank you. So if there's any other questions, now's the time. And if not, I want to thank everybody for attending today. We hope that you've learned something that you didn't know before, or you knew it and you said, oh yeah, that consolidated what you knew. And certainly thank you once again to Jangir Sultan, Adria Gross, Ron Fatula, and you know what? You can't see it, but I'm drinking something, and it says, you can't read it right, but it says hint on it. So playing with the theme of the day of what your mug says, my hint is, if you're looking for professionals that are caring, that have great expertise, that are accessible, and are going to help you through this healthcare, elder care maze, you're looking at them. Have a wonderful rest of your summer, and we look forward to seeing you on future webinars. We have some great things planned for the future. Thank you very much.